presentation. Good evening, and welcome to Pyramid One World Radio. Let me tell you about the show you're going to be listening to, called Be the Change. The first guest of Dr. Randall George Nozawa is Georgia Love. She's an author, a paranormal research, metaphysical insights, and more. Get a copy of her book, Escape from Manhattan, written by Georgia Love and available in Amazon. Georgia is a paranormal researcher, remote viewer, and modern astrologer. No longer is the tragedy of 9/11 considered conspiracy theory, but now exposed as truth and an inside job by the cabal, or known as the deep state. This non-fiction creative book will direct you to take the red pill, so anyone you wish to will wake up to reality. Let me tell you about the next guest. His name is Dan Pelley. Dan Pelley's mission is to instill hope in others' hearts and inspire them to want to live. Dialogue is crucial about suicide and depression. We must narrow the disconnect from being aware in the illness to prevention, to treatment, and to recovery. The doctor's next guest is Patrick Herbert. At one point in his life, the world was telling Patrick he needed to basically wake up and answer the call. He also discovered that he was smuggled in to awaken and elevate in frequency. Eventually, Patrick would have sessions with a shaman and with a seer, Clarke, who have both informed him that he functions as some form of conduit for an intergalactic audience. Suddenly, synchronistic events began to lead Patrick down a rabbit hole. Over the course of this time, negative entities attacked. However, in his vision, he saw himself there to help others awaken. Patrick's awakening and subsequent rebirth is still playing out, and he is incredibly excited about the future as synchronistic events continue to manifest rapidly every single day. Let me tell you a little bit about your host. What about the doctor? What about Dr. Randall George Nozawa? The doctor was blinded after two tragedies. Nozawa's will to live a full life continues undeterred. The doctor is living proof that a person can do everything right only to suffer horrific events that stymied decades of hard work and left him blind. The two most gruesome tragedies he suffered would make the fire-breathing Godzilla buckle in bitterness. But not Nozawa. He's grateful just to be alive. It was the first of two tragic events that would change his life forever. And today, right here on Pyramid One World Radio, I am proud and honored to present Dr. Randall George Nozawa.
Oh yeah.
Well, there you go.
Oh man.
Oh, yeah.
What we have this these great guests here, and no, you told me that Dan Pelly couldn't attend, but just to kind of update everyone, since this COVID thing has come upon us, the calls to any kind of suicide hotline has gone up 8,000%. So what's happened here is that a fake virus and a fake panic, a fake pandemonium has caused most of us to feel more fearful, okay, feel depressed and feel hopeless and helpless. Okay, and this is what the cause of this, besides the destroying the economy, not only the national economy but worldwide. So what I think Dan is, because he's a suicide warrior, I think he's been inundated and just pelted with with more and more people in that depression and suicide zone. So anyway, I think I can't say why he's not here, but it's I think he's under enormous amount of pressure, and I think he's responding to a lot of people needing his help. So we're going to miss him, and hopefully we'll have him back on the next show. Anyway, we only have an hour, and I wish this was a 6-hour show, but that's not up to me. But anyway, I want to talk about COVID. This is a fake pandemic and orchestrated by not governments, but what's behind the government, the shadow government. Cabal, Illuminati, the Empire, whatever you want to call it, and ties into both what Patrick is, well versed in, and akin to a lot of his research, and with what Georgia brings up. Because what's happening is that this stranglehold over us is for a reason. It's for a reason. Okay, and more than just a financial thing, but also a one that wants to depopulate our world, one that will sterilize a lot of us, and to one being make sure that we are under control. And with that, what Georgia will bring up, or I'm hoping she will, is that that there is in this certain group of people, just a type of indecency, immorality, with that, and she'll bring up more about that on the pedophilia that's out there, that's become almost commonplace with the very wealthy. So anyway, let me start this off, and then I'll have you start, Patrick. Is that this COVID thing was well practiced before 2020. When you're talking about the Bill Gates meeting,
Event 201, John Hopkins John Hopkins and the
Yep.
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
So it's practice, right? And of all things, they pick something obscure called a coronavirus. What the hell is that? Okay, and then they go, just in case we're gonna have this mythical scenario that if this this virus infected everyone, what would happen? What would happen to people? What would happen to the world? What would happen to the economy? And a weird thing to be practicing. And guess what? Half of this 2020 year, it's become our reality. And because people are conditioned to be fearful, conditioned to not be able to think critically, conditioned to not allow their intuition to take over, most of us adhere to stay at home, stay trapped. Okay, don't go to work, don't attend to your business, go broke. Okay, stay 72 inches apart. Well, I don't know viruses that can jump 72 inches, and and a lot of people don't, and a lot of virologists and immunologists are also concerned about those, because it kind of stresses what they know of the medicine that they know. But what has happened in reality is that most people are stuck at home. Most people are into this 72 inches distancing thing, and this wearing of masks that OSHA says does not work. Most regular scientists and researchers said does not work and actually can cause illness because now you can't breathe regular air, and that viruses work with bacteria in our bodies to keep us healthy. And at any given time, there are 265 trillion type of different viruses within us. Okay, and the equal amount that are out there in the air, water, soil, because they're put there long before humans, were ever created, and they're inside of us, working with bacteria to turn on and off genes to keep us healthy. Okay, but this fake it has been orchestrated by that shadow government behind our government, and look at us now, and things will only get worse. And shows like this sheds light, gives education, gives people hope of what's going on because people just don't know what's going on. So Patrick, update us because look at where our world is going. And although, with Pyramid One and with Bob Charles, is that we give truth, but we're considered like alternative news, and people get a lot of their information from all the major news channels, NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, and things like that. All of it's fake, and all of it's reconstructed, and what is given to the public is not actual news, and it's twisted. Okay, and you notice that there's no discussion about anything, so it's not really a narrative, or it's a one-sided one, where not all the information is given, and people become more and more afraid, more and more scared, and they're waiting for the government to bail us all out, which will never happen. So go ahead, take it away, update us.
Sure. Well, of course, you had brought up the exercise, so I want to remind everybody that. The Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, had hosted Event 201, which was a high-level pandemic exercise, on October 18th, 2019, in New York. The exercise illustrated areas where public and private partnerships will be necessary during the response to a severe pandemic in order to diminish large-scale economic and social consequences. And, of course, not more than a couple months later, we were facing down with this pandemic. Okay, so, one of the things that has been frequently discussed is the, problem, reaction, solution. And I like to, talk a little bit about David Icke and his conversations that he's had, especially on London Real, where he discussed multiple times that, and in the very beginning, when the first lockdowns happened, he said this was not going to be the only lockdown. They're going to keep repeatedly locking down and locking down and locking down, and keep having a case to lock down and lock down and lock down. So, and that's literally what's happening right now in Houston. We're one of the big outbreaks, right? And we are, what's going on. The media narrative versus reality are two totally different things. A lot of people in Houston have wisened up to this, and I think a lot of this has to do with, but there is a big political division behind all of this. Because we're coming up on an election season. The Democratic Party wants Donald Trump out of office. The pillars of Donald Trump's presidency are, economic development and other various things like that. Now, I don't want to put too much spotlight on politics, but this division is there. And there is one half of that divide cheerleading this thing on. And this is true, and I experience it here a lot. Traditionally, Houston is, or not Houston, but in Texas in general, is, they have it's politically known as a kind of a right-wing kind of state and stuff like that. So there's a lot of pushback against the narrative of coronavirus and stuff like that. And a lot of that has to do with some of the stuff that Trump had talked about early, and his resistance to the mask. Now, this conversation is complex. The reason it is so complex is because of that political divide. People get worked up over politics. They will literally fight, especially in this climate right now. Things are so engineered to be so volatile that delivering any element of truth to one side or the other is incredibly difficult. Okay, so having said that, I've been noticing I've been hanging out on my blog. I've been writing a couple articles about this. I've been hanging out on on the local news comments boards, just watching and talking, interacting with people, challenging, debating, getting censored for the most part. Anytime I bring up any of the, like with regards to the RT-PCR test, which is a DNA manufacturing technique, which is according to FDA summary reports on the manufacturers, per the number of cycles, they are overextending the PCR test, which when you overextend it like they're doing, according to them MIQE guidelines, when you overextend the PCR test, you increase the chances of false positives. Because we're talking about, so the best way to describe this is when you are, and these numbers are cycle, and when you're looking at all of these DNA strands, and I'm thinking of the term upsampling, but that's not the correct terminology. The greater the cycles, the more chance you introduce more chances for errors in the reading. And a lot of people that have been, in particular David Crow, who's produced a wonderful amount summary research on everything regarding this pandemic. When you go through his evidence and then go through the his references, and then you watch people like Dr. Andrew Kaufman, listen to them and what they have to say, you really can see how things have been engineered. So things are engineered from the ground up by manipulating the tests in the beginning. Now, the thing is, people are getting sick, right? And that's true. There are people who are getting sick. There are people who are getting scared and getting sick. There are people that will get sick. People get sick. The funny thing about this pandemic is people aren't getting sick from the same conditions, the flu, common cold. They're all COVID now. So what they've done is they've redesignated the symptoms to for other conditions over to a SARS-CoV-2 infection, and then they claim that causes a disease called COVID-19, and then they've redesignated the diagnosis for other conditions as well over to COVID-19 disease. So they re-diagnose for other diseases. And you see this wordplay going on in the local media where they will say something like somebody has just died of COVID-19 complications, right? Okay, what does that mean? Did they die of COVID-19? Or if it was explicit, cut and dry, explicitly dying of COVID-19, they would say this person died of COVID-19, not COVID-19 complications. That with complications is really that gray area. And so you look at that, and you look at this wordplay, and then you realize that the people that did die had a terminal, or for the most part, had an underlying condition, were either immunocompromised or died of heart failure, but then they were tested either before they were ever admitted to a hospital, or a lot of times the people go there for these conditions that they already have, and they're tested there, and with the RT-PCR test, oh, guess what, you've got it, which has an 80% false positive rate. Now on the other end of that, you've got these other tests going on which are very deceptive. You've got the antibody test. Now, the antibody test is absolutely hilarious, because the CDC documentation, it says, hey, with this antibody test, you may have COVID, but chances are you probably have just been exposed to another form of coronavirus in the past, or been sick with the common cold. Like, really? So, how does that? And then, of course, in order to get those numbers jacked up, they say probable cases now. So and this is funny with the antibody test, because all of us have had, at one point of our life, we've had a cold. All of us, and like you say, Dr. Randall, we've got viruses, and we've got bacteria, we've got fungus, we've got all of this going throughout our system all the time, every day. And these are the things that will show up, especially in the RT-PCR test, which is just looking for RNA particles. So you have that. Okay, so they and of course, the detection of RNA or any quantity of RNA does not correlate with illness in any way. And to this date, unless everything I've researched is completely wrong, there has never been conclusive evidence to support that anything called a virus has ever caused any disease. And I love this line that that Dr. Kaufman says, and he's, and this is I've read it before in other places, but I heard about it the first time from him. Correlation does not equal causation. And so it's remarkable. And back to the antibody test. And of course, you've got kids, you've got this, you've got that, and people getting tested for antibodies, adults, young adults, whatever. So they test, they detect an antibody. Oh God, yeah. Oh well, you might have COVID, or you might have been sick in the past. We don't know, but you're a probable case now. Who do you know? How many friends do you have? 17? Okay, all 17 of them are now added to the list of numbers of infected. The numbers of infected deception is remarkable. Okay, so I know 2 people who had bacterial sinus infections. Each one of these guys recovered in a matter of days. I think no more than 3 or 4 at the max. Full recoveries. Given being scared and everything like that, they went to go and get tested. And surprise, surprise, their test came back positive. So they're now a positive statistic for COVID, even though they had a bacterial sinus infection. Okay. I even looked at the manufacturer notes for the test because they sent me a screenshot of their tests. And these tests were versions of the overextended in terms of cycles. They were overextended. So no, they got over that. They got tested. They were tested positive. Now, I asked my friend Aaron last night, in fact, I said, hey, you got tested positive, right? So you were added into the number of infected category. I said, did anybody call you like a week later and say, did you ever recover? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, so you're another forever statistic, because they show the number of infected versus the number of recoveries, right? But okay, so now let's look at, so we've got the number of infected that rises because they never deduce the number of infected or the number of recovered from the number of infected, never. So that number is rising continually. Now we've got the probable cases, which are added to that. We have the people who do not have symptoms, which is over 80% of the people who test positive do not have symptoms. So if you don't have any symptoms, then you have nothing to get over. So what are you? If you aren't sick, you're never recovering from anything. So that you will never be in that category of number of recoveries. It's just a continual increase in the number of infected. And as they have said, Ron Paul pointed this out recently, they've shifted the goalposts. Where in the past they were, after they slaughtered everybody in nursing homes in New York and said, oh, it was COVID running rapid. And I'm talking about, the nurses going on the record and saying, no, they're murdering these people with the mechanical ventilation, forced mechanical ventilation. They're giving these old people who are already sick and already dying, they're giving them sedatives, which are deadly. And then they are giving them forced mechanical ventilation, which, as I've brought up a statistic many times from the Shaman network, that the 18 to 65 and older than 65A groups had a 76.4% and 97.2% chance of dying, respectively. 97.2% chance of dying from a sedative and a mechanical ventilation. Now imagine you run out that treatment procedure on all of these hundreds of people who are in nursing homes and already sick, old, and dying. Right? So you get those numbers jacked up. Okay, so now everybody's caught on to that. We all know that now. I've asked some people here in Houston if that kind of level of death certificate manipulation, where whoever's dying from whatever condition is being put as COVID, like they did in New York, which jacked up those death numbers, if that was being done in Houston. No. And we have a very low death rate in Houston. We have, the last time I checked for Harris County, the actual number was, I believe, 187 deaths, and it doesn't move much. And of course, the local media will say, Houston area, 700 something deaths, but that's like 18 counties that they count. It's ridiculously deceptive. So, with that said, it's nuts, and they shift the goalpost from the number of dead now because everybody's got under that. So now it's the number of infected, and they've completely, utterly, and totally rigged that number. Now, here's what I've been encountering in Houston. And and the number of infected is so deceptive. It's so unbelievably deceptive. It's not just slightly deceptive. It's insanely deceptive. Okay, so in Houston, I kind of lost my train of thought there. But one of the things, that I've noticed, and this is very interesting, is I try to say anything on certain websites and certain local news stations in the comment sections. I'm always attacked as being a right-wing Trump supporter, which is, it's like, and I say to people, I like, oh my God, If you go through life seeing everything through a political lens, how are you ever going to see the bigger picture? And they can't. There's such an absolute, it's maddening. It's truly maddening, because here you'll get, if you're not wearing a mask, you're a Trump supporter. If you're, and of course they're doing the mandatory mask. Quickly before I hand this back to you, I want to point something out about Amnesty International's report from, I believe it was 1973, and I had sent this to you, Dr. Randall.
Yep.
Let's go over the 3 Ds: debility, dependency, and dread. And the CIA has been trained to use debility, dependency, and dread according to their 1983 Human Resource Exploitation Training Manual. And many psychologists consider the threat of including debility to be more effective than debility itself. Okay, with DDD, the debilitated victim becomes dependent upon the torturer and develops a strong fear of anything vague or unknown. Bilderman's chart of caution lays out the design of DDD. Now, listen to these points. Number 1, isolation. And we see this with quarantine and social distancing and the prohibition of crowds and large gatherings, except protests, I must add. For some reason, COVID doesn't attack protests. We have the monopolization of perception. I'm a big person when it comes to, I write a lot of articles about perception. So corporate mainstream media has monopolized all of pop culture, and those on social media who challenge the mainstream narrative, and they are censored, just like I am. And I have articles on my site which show how absolutely insane the censorship is, with screenshots and everything. So you've got induced debilitation and exhaustion. What do we have? We have, and this is a transcript from a video I had watched, and it was gym closures, church closures, losing your job, school closing, wearing masks all day long. And of course you see the masks cause a drop in oxygen levels. They you get headaches, you get irritated. We have threats. We are threatened that our children will be taken away, and that people are going to come and raid our house if one of us has it, and we're spreading the disease inside of our family. There was a sheriff, or not a sheriff, but a public service guy in Austin on TV the other day who said that people should be wearing masks inside their house. What kind of insanity is that? Okay, occasional indulgences.
Wow.
So this is the occasional indulgences. Was here's a point with the protest. So all the riots and all the protests, those are okay, but Trump rallies are not. Everybody will get COVID at a Trump rally, but you're fine at a BLM protest. Not to just drag these two, but these are two big imposing sets of social structures going on, or social manipulations going on. You can go to Walmart, you can go to Kroger, you can go to HEB. You can go to all the big corporate, grocery stores, right? Just fine. You'll never get COVID there. But small businesses are going to get a haircut. You're going to get it and die, So we get these little rewards. Okay, yeah, we get to go to the grocery store, woohoo! But we have to put on the mandatory mask now in Houston, and then we get to get our groceries and go home. It's nuts. And of course they label all of this as the new normal. That should be frightening to anyone who hears it. No, I don't want this to be the new normal. You know what I mean? But they're trying to make it. They're trying to put it in everybody's mind that this is the way it's going to be from now on. So and then they shut down the global, demonstrating omnipotence and omniscience, and shutting down the entire global economy was a demonstration of omnipotence. They give fines for people not wearing masks. We've seen the omniscience of Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, and the experts. Bill Gates, who I saw a funny cartoon of him. It showed a picture of Bill Gates with a box above his head that says, "I identify as a doctor." And that was that really made me almost fall over and laugh. Degradation, number 7. They're being called a science denier, being called non-essential, being treated as an ignorant fool. We got the celebrities barking at us from their Twitter perch, telling us how dumb us common people are, wear a mask. Tom Hanks recently came out and said people who don't wear masks are idiots. I don't remember if that's exactly what he said, but it was something like, or he can't stand people who don't wear masks. It's not like I live my life trying to make Tom Hanks, of all people, happy. Enforcing trivial demands, number 8. Which is the final step, develops habits of compliance, enforcement of new rules, such as standing 6 feet apart, following errors, or following arrows, not errors. So those are those eight the 8 items that I have on this list. What I found to be really interesting when I came across that information. So and this anything having to do with the CIA is literally the epitome of the deep state, shadow government, etc., whatever you want to call it. It is one arm of them. Hopefully, I didn't sound all over the place there, but that's a mad quick summary that I can give in that short of the time. So, and since we're on the topic of the Illuminati and shadow government, this would be good for Georgia because what she's discovered at Wayfair and all that stuff, I too had been coming across that information. I was just mind blown, by that stuff. That was really fascinating. Okay, so
let me jump in there for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
He was talking about the arrows. Okay, I was in the store here in Florida, and Florida's supposed to be another one of those hot spaces. And everybody's afraid. They're all running around, going, "Oh my God, put your mask on!" Just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody is like freaking out if somebody doesn't have a mask on. Well, one step further, when I go to the store, there's no way I'm going up and down one way. I mean, give me I won't even swear, but give me a break, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what I do is I go around the outside of the store, see, and then I walk down the aisle and get whatever I want and go back to the cart. Tricky little guy, huh? No, I'm quick, man. I can whiz through a place that I can do an hour's worth of shopping in 15 minutes. But I'm going down the aisle, and I'm only walking now. I left the cart, back at the thing. Well, these 2 women come up to me and they say, and they were 6 feet away, when they were there. They say, "You're going the wrong way." And I said to them, "Excuse me?" And they said, "You're not supposed to go this way. You have to go that way." The 2 of them are pointing at me. Two women pointing at me. "You got to go that way." And I said to them, "But I don't have a cart." No. You can't walk that way. I said to them, "Ma'am, with all respect, if you want to follow the arrows on the ground, you go ahead and follow those arrows." But I said, "Watch it. It turns at the end of the aisle." The woman was like, "What? Who? What?" I swear to you. I mean, they snake up and down the aisles as you go. And if you did your shopping, you'd be going through aisles that you really have no reason to be into in the first place. But you're following everybody that's in front of you like a snake.
Oh God, that's just so ridiculous. It's not like that here,
but they're serious about it here. Really dead serious. And I'm telling you, these 2 women, I was ready to really run in the right direction. They were bigger than me, way bigger than me, both of them. So I was like, "Whoa, you're not in Weight Watchers aisle."
And don't you love how they tell on you, or how they tell you what to do, or tell you how to Oh, it's crazy.
They're teaching kids to tell on their parents. They are. I think I wouldn't. Georgie's gonna throw something in about that. But the thing is that they're making our kids into vegetables. They really are.
No, well, what you guys are talking about is enslavement, and how everyone hates China, right? But what you're talking about here is you're getting social credits because they turn you in, and they might get rewarded for that, and they are now soldiers of the deep state, and because they were groomed to do so. But Georgia, take this away. Tell us what the Illuminati or Cabal is, and what's really behind all this, behind our government and all that, and who's really at fault here, and just the sinister nature of this group here. So why don't you take it away?
Okay, I think one of the most important things for people to realize, whether they like President Trump or not, the very first thing he did was sign an agenda that anybody that was child trafficking or doing human exploitation like pedophilia, any of this stuff, selling people, slavery, they would go to Gitmo and they would either be put to sleep, hung, or the needle, okay, or firing squad. And when I do the research on and that was the first thing he addressed. So, if nothing else, I totally respect the man for that, because whether you know it or not, 800,000 children went missing every year in the United States. I personally don't know how the United States can even function when 800,000 fathers and 800,000 mothers are going out of their freaking mind because their kid is gone. And what they've been doing lately is they've been getting these kids and through Wayfair, Amazon, Etsy, and Facebook, selling these children with objects of furniture or pillows, if it's Etsy, for $10,000 or more. Now, I'm hoping with all my heart that Trump shuts down all these 4 organizations, confiscates all their money, and the CEOs of these companies are in gitmo and facing the death penalty, because they damn well know a $200 cabinet is not worth $10,000 and a $20 pillow isn't worth $10,000. They're very complicit in all this, and it's got to stop. Like, the people have got to see some standpoint where we're excelling, that we're addressing the situation. And they got to see that. That's the first thing that has to happen for people to get a backbone again. They need to know this. And of course, the mass media, the fake news will never print any of this. And so it's up to us little people to try to get this information out there any way we can. Personally, I don't even want to be on Amazon with my book anymore. I'm trying to find a publisher that's honest and decent. Even I would like a Christian publisher, actually, that would take my book, because I don't want to do anything with Amazon. To give them 1 penny of anything of mine, I don't want to do that. I will not support them. And Oprah herself is a child trafficker. She's even into the adrenochrome, all of this crap. And if you don't know what adrenochrome is, audience, go on the internet and search for adrenochrome, because when you find out what it is, you're going to be horrified. And we got to get a backbone, and we got to get mad enough to stand up to these people that are the Antifa and Black Lives Matter, because they're the ones behind all of this, along with the Democratic Party. Everyone in the Democratic Party knows about adrenochrome, knows what's going on. None of them are stupid. Pelosi herself is into all of this. I'd like to see her go without her adrenochrome for a few days and see what she really looks like, because the adrenochrome makes them look younger. Go on, if you don't believe me, go and Google what Celine Dion looks like right now, because she was on the adrenochrome. So was Ellen DeGeneres. So was Oprah. All of these people look horrific. They look like they're 90 years old and dying, because when you take that adrenochrome away from them, God help them. Now, Hillary, I call her Hillary Clinton, she was on the adrenochrome, and plus eating human flesh. So she ended up with Kuru, right? The point of the matter is, her nickname in the CIA was Evergreen, because she believed she would ever stay young, evergreen. And when you start to see all the synchronicity, all the dots connected as to what's going on, the only thing I can think of is going to get the people off their butts and mad enough, mad as hell, to do something. We should be out there as conservatives, neck to neck with these Antifa and Black Matter. We shouldn't let them take over our country. You know, 2 world wars we fought and died for to keep our world free, and we're sitting back letting this happen. It's beyond me. And by the way, the COVID virus is so small, none of your masks work. It's a big joke. The virus goes straight through that. It can't be captured by any of these masks. So the whole thing is, I call the mask slave mask. It's the new burqa for white people, for anybody. Anyway, said my piece.
Well, if you think about it, you know what's really interesting when it comes to another thing that we're really being starved of on the human-to-human level is the mask. We express facial expressions to each other. This mask hides that. So these very clear social cues that we have as a collective, that we have and share as a collective, a smile, a facial expression. We can't see that anymore. So all you see is just an ocean of eyes and eyebrows and we try and some mental capacity to make sense of the emotional state of the person we may be passing. Is that a smile? Is that a frown? Are they what are they doing? What's under that? We can't. My daughter at the grocery store, it was heartbreaking for me because I had to wear a mask, and I was trying to talk to her, but she was so confused because she couldn't read the emotional feedback. So I had to keep lifting my mask to show her that I was smiling. And once she saw that I was smiling under the mask, she would light up, and then I'd have to put the mask back down. I was like, this is so insane. And we have all these people. Georgia, I've studied I've researched the elements of child trafficking. I've looked at even I learned of through David Icke, Jimmy Savile, and that whole situation. And he had a children's show on the BBC, and of course Edward Heath, who was his partner, in all of that. It's just all that stuff is hold on one second, baby. All that stuff is very real, and it's very disturbing, very, very disturbing. It's hidden all under the surface. So.
Well, my concern is that when they come grab kids for the excuse of COVID, do you ever get to see your child again? Or are they being black marketed? Like, what's really going on? I wouldn't put anything past the people that are grabbing these kids. Nothing. And I think people have really got to get off their backsides and get mad. We should have people that are not Antifa and Black Matter storming and parading. This is just beyond knowledge of human decency, like the whole thing. I live in Prince George, BC, and I'm very lucky because we're 8 hours away from any other destination, and we're kind of sheltered here because of the distance, and very few people here wear masks. But they're ignorant. They believe everything that comes off CBC, CNN, all the alphabet soup media. And it's so hard to get them to realize this is all a big game. People, they just don't want to believe that this world has become this kind of a nightmare. I guess I come from a fighting family, so I want to fight. There's no way I'm going to lay down and play dead. My God.
It's the totalitarian tiptoe. They've slowly done this over time, slowly moving us further along, because how do you boil a frog? Very slowly, If they would have been too quick, we would have figured it out too fast, so they've kind of tiptoed us towards, various steps along the way into this, and now we are here where we're at.
So when are people going to wake up?
That's true. You know what? That I work on that every day, literally. That's why one of the reasons why I slug it out on like I said, in the comment sections on sites, just trying to say anything I could do to maybe trigger, to make them think, to make that I get attacked, censored. It's the pushback is just. the pushback, the fight back is nuts.
So that everyone knows though that today, this morning, we're talking like 5 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I was on one of AOL their comment things with all the stuff and that going on right now in the world, and everything with COVID to vaccinations to all kinds of things. And I literally took another article and another article and another article, put them all together, rewrote them, and stuck them on AOL, the whole line that was there. Within 5 minutes, I got censored, I got thrown out, I got dismissed, the whole 9 yards. I never saw anything so fast in my life. And the thing was, what I put in there was so true, it was ridiculous. It was the actual fact about COVID-19. The actual fact. And I got out of there. They don't want you to know.
The further we dial this back, a lot of people are like, well, who's behind us? Who's behind us? Who's behind us? You go back and you have to people have to understand where money comes from, who controls money, and who issues it. And all you have to do to convince yourself whether or not that is true is ask yourself this one question, or tell yourself this one phrase: he who has the gold rules. That is a 100% certainty, and has always been a certainty. And the bankers and the international bankers and the international lenders and the international financiers, They have the gold. They control all of this through their control of finance. They and all of us are enslaved via debt. All the governments, everything. So all the politicians are compromised, all of them. They're just all compromised. All of them. They wouldn't be there if they weren't. Like the Federal Reserve. I've brought this up many times on many shows. Is running the United States through the United States of America Incorporated, which is operated by the Federal Reserve, and the IMF operates the United States Corporation. And this is, you could look this up. One of Judge Anna von Reitz is one really brilliant woman that I've looked through her stuff, and she's got a wonderful amount of information on that in particular. And this ties back to the famous families, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and there's a bunch of them, and so they are the ones with the gold. They're the ones rule, and we're all enslaved through this debt that we all have. So, and that's just the truth. And they are a dark cult. They are literally a dark cult, evil occultists.
They also say when they're doing all, I see them pipe peeking over there. It's good though. It's going to be a cameo on the show.
That's my daughter. She keeps. I think my wife was locking the door.
I had what's his Georgia will tell you. I had my dog on before. he's good. Let me tell you. But as far as all this is concerned, in it with the money thing, and it now. There are people who come up to me all the time and say, well, the Federal Reserve said. Don't forget, I was a vice president in the mortgage business for 10 years. I have, done lectures and things in that in front of the Capital Ones and the Discoverers and all those kind of people. I had a ball, doing all this stuff. But when somebody said to me, the Federal Reserve is federal, I laugh. And these can be guys with a lot more money in their pocket than I got. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I said to them, I said, why don't you guys do your homework? I said, the Federal Reserve is private industry. It's like the IRS. The IRS is not federal anything. It's a private collection agency tied to pay off some of not all the money, but some of the money to the government. The rest of it goes to the guys you were just talking about, the places you were just talking about. Oh my goodness, there's people that are funding all these things that are going around that we don't know a dang thing about. Just like the kids that are sold on a market. Who do you think set up the market? Must have been somebody with a lot of money when they did that. How did they get the money? Well, most of that money comes from old roots. It was old roots many, 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 many years ago, and just built from then to then to then. Like you take a guy like Gates. He makes $1 million every 45 seconds. How would you like to put that in your pocket? That's what happens when you have that many billions of dollars invested in all kinds of things that are doing nothing but making money while you're sitting having a champagne on the porch. But that's the kind of people these people are. That's why they can take over anything they want to for no reason whatsoever. They just do it. So, Doctor, next, Georgia will tear me apart, I know, on that one.
We hijacked Dr. Randall's show.
No, that's why you guys are all on. And that's why I just love this, because all of this has to become the mainstream, I guess the new mainstream. Because all the information out there is fake, it's false, but no one knows that it is. So that's why, with Pyramid One, my show Be the Change, and my YouTube show with you, Patrick, New and Lifestyle Medicine, tells truth. And we have people like Georgia on, like Dan Pelly on, okay, like a Steve Lyons or like a Dylan Charles. We bring those folks all on. And Dylan Charles, by the way, if all of you don't know who that is, he's puts out this publication called Waking Times. And please look through all that, because not only is that informative, but it helps you both, spiritually and emotionally too. And it's just a true update and, worth all reading. But what all of you are describing is enslavement. And for our shows here, and what we want to do is that, well, I don't want to be a slave. I just don't. I refuse. And I I don't want other people to succumb to all this, because look what's happening. Okay, everyone's running from a virus that is necessary for life, and told to stay indoors, don't go to work, let your business go bankrupt, and look at all of us now, running out of money, running out of money, running out. And then what? What's going to happen? People are going to get pissed. They're going to turn to violence, and they're going to question the government. Okay, now what? Now what? Now what? Because no matter how much the government has money-wise, they're going to run out of money. Not everyone's going to get their stimulus check. Not everyone's going to get, unemployment benefits. That we want to live, we want to be free, and I can feel the tide of just discontent, churning. And with a show like this, with Pyramid One, and what we do on YouTube, is that we show truth. I want people to get off their asses, to just get off their asses. Get outside, get some sunshine, get some sunshine to hit your skin, so you can create some vitamin D in you, which, for all of you out there, as far as all the so-called COVID cases out that have been, kind of fictitiously manufactured, with a blood level of, 3.6 nanograms per milliliter, no one gets COVID. No one gets it. Okay, so get outside, get that vitamin D, which is free. Okay, it allows you to live. It promotes your immune system. Okay, and so once again, we're stuck in this ruse, and it's basically destroy the economy. But what I tell everyone is that it's a new beginning. We can turn, this monstrous catastrophe into something great. We can become great, and have to start individually with us. And by you listening to this channel here, to Pyramid One, and Bob Charles has got a lot of stuff out there, is that you learn something. And up to you to fight for your freedom. You got to fight for it. Otherwise, you're going to get crushed. You're going to get crushed, and you're going to get depopulated or sterilized. Okay, and that is a fact. And we only throw out facts to you, and up to you to decide what you want to do with it. But I would suggest, when you look around the room and you see your family, your loved ones, your friends, and all that, or the life that you dream of living, you can. But you got to take a stand. You got to dig your heels in, and you got to fight, because this is truth. All the stuff on the mainstream media is not, because none of this gets talked about. All those people that you mentioned, Patrick, they don't get on the major news medias because they're not wanted. They don't want to. Those news medias don't want the truth to get out, because they don't make money that way. Okay, the news they sell is doctored up, and it's doctored up in the wrong way. So here, what I really enjoy and appreciate is that we tell truth, and we get to talk honestly like this. And I don't want people to give up. I want people to have hope. I want them to, help themselves out. But you've got to take that stand. Just like Georgia said, you got to take that stand. You got to fight. You got to dig your heels in, and you have to correct the injustice. You can't just let it go by. By letting injustice go by, that means you promote it. So what do you want? You got to fight to prevent it, to expose it, and to do the right thing. And so that's why I enjoy all of you here on the show, and we'll get Dan Pelly back next time. But thanks to Bob, I've got a wonderful show like this, and I want more people to watch it. I want you to tell people about this. Get the recording of this, okay? But you got to dig in. Truth is truth. You want to be a slave, or you want to live as a free person? You want slavery, or you want to be free? There's a choice. You can't have both. Right now, you're choosing slavery, and that's why you're stuck indoors. Get outside. Do what you need to do. We can change government politics. We can change government decisions, because 99% is a lot. And as many of you know, Patrick and I are running for a co-presidency, and I think we can do a better job based on that one primary directive, creating a world that works for everyone, leaving no one behind. Okay. That is tough to do, because now there's no that side of the aisle or this side of the aisle. It's working for everyone, where everyone benefits. And yeah, we got to stick it out there. We have to create, we have to imagine, we have to. If you want wealth, you got to create it. Okay, and you can't do it alone, and you can't do it because of somebody else or in spite of someone else. Collaboration, cooperation. is a new success. So anyway, that's my deal. I'm so glad I have Patrick on, and Patrick and I are gonna do a YouTube show tomorrow, and thanks to you, Georgia, and you represent Canada in what's up there, and thank you for reporting the truth, because darn, we need it. We need it. And people sometimes are either afraid of the truth or don't want to believe it because they've been conditioned otherwise. They've conditioned to take lies in, and they've made cognitive dissonance normal. Okay, that is not normal. Truth is truth, and if you want to be free, you got to fight for it.
I got a question from for Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia, you've been seeing people running around in Chinese uniforms up there anymore?
Oh God, I'm not in that part of Canada, but I was told that they've overtaken the oil patch and they have Chinese military in there guarding their what would you call it? Their property, right? Because they bought up all the oil and gas and all of that in Fort Mac. From what
Really?
I know, okay, from what I've been told. So I don't have privy to go.
I used to, I was in Calgary for a little bit, and I went. This was in 2008, and I spent some time out on site. It was Albion Sands, oil sands. I was doing development work up there, and at Fort Mac. So I'm very familiar with that area. But this was, like I said, this was back in 2008. I know that there was a huge crash, but I never followed what, there was a crash in all sorts of oil sands, but I never followed through what was going on up there.
There's a lot of poverty there right now because the oil patch workers aren't getting the work. They've shipped in Chinese. So a lot of Albertans are unemployed because their jobs have been given to the Chinese. But there is a show off of YouTube called Crossroads. And if you can get a chance, Bob, to connect with the man that's doing Crossroads, they're expressing what's going on in China. And it is absolutely incredible. The huge dam there burst and millions and millions of Chinese people died asleep in their beds when the water came down. They've got locusts eating all kinds of miles of crops. The earthquakes are going on because I believe that some military, I'm not sure which military, is in there clearing out the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases. I would love to have, I'm sure David Icke knows about.
Oh, yeah, I've read all about the DUMBs.
What's going on, right? And the ships, the Mercy, and I keep forgetting the Mercy and the other one that were on the two coasts. They wanted to rescue the children from the DUMBs, but they were so deep down. It was like when a scuba diver comes up and if he comes up too fast, he goes into shock. Well, these kids, it was the same thing because they were down so deep that when they brought them up, they were dying because they couldn't handle the pressure of the, do you know what I mean? It was just like the same condition as scuba divers coming up too fast. So a lot of the ships left the harbor without the children that they wanted on those boats, or yachts, whatever you call them. So what's going on? One day there will be movies, all of this, that will just blow people's minds. It will one day turn around where people will have the courage to face what's going on.
I for me personally, I went through my awakening. Now a lot of people need to know that I had no idea about any of this. I had no idea about a spiritual awakening. I had no idea that there could be supernatural experiences. To me, that was something you saw in movies. I was just a software engineer. I just went to work and I went home and I played video games and I drank beer and that was it. And then my whole life was completely disrupted by metaphysical and supernatural events that started happening to me. And then I was led to David Icke and his material. Now, that trip down the rabbit hole is complicated for people. If you haven't had similar experiences, like someone recently was trying to convince me that that David Icke is a Freemason gatekeeper and things like that, and I was like, maybe if I didn't have my supernatural experiences, but trying to convince me of anything about David Icke in that regard is very complicated because you would have to convince me in a supernatural metaphysical way, because that's how I was led to his information. And his information is complicated, it's complex, and it's hard to believe unless you've had, I believe it 100%. I know everything you're saying is the truth because I've had so many supernatural experiences, and everything happened to me, and my whole life was flipped upside down by all of it. And I know it's true, and it's just it's so hard because I know some people might be listening to this, and they're probably going like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, sure. There's children underneath the sea, and they're all dying," right? But that's the problem. That's what's so, and that is the mainstream mindset, because I experienced that. I lived the first 35 years of my life with that mentality. And if I would have heard all the stuff that I learned from David Icke back then, I would have thought, oh my God, this guy is insane, but now, like I said, it's everything I went through. I've experienced some really incredible, and my wife witnessed all of this with me. So, and one of the reasons she did, was because, so that I couldn't question it. I couldn't say, am I going insane? No, because she experienced all the supernatural events alongside me. So, having been through that, having experienced that, and a lot of my experiences were very similar to what David went through in his own awakening. And having experienced that, I know everything that he's saying is the truth. I know where he's coming from. I know his heart, because I know that what it's like to go through that. And, I haven't experienced that, that level of humiliation and everything that they did to him when he first started to come out about this stuff in the 90s. I would never know what it's like to be on national TV, like on Wogan, and to be humiliated like he was, purposefully. And of course, that made it so much more difficult for him to reach people. And, that's very engineered that way. And they shamed him, and they would make fun of him if he walked down the street, man. But he kept going. Now look at it. Now people are going back and they're going, holy crap, what's going on in our world? And guess what? David knows. He's been writing about it for over 30 years. So it's, but it's, I just hope, like you say, Georgia, one day it's, people are going to see this stuff, and they're going to see what's really been going on behind the scenes. And it is dark, and it is disturbing. It is so disturbing, and it's horrific, and it's true. And that's the whole most heartbreaking thing about it. It's true. And
oh, sorry, I shouldn't interrupt. I think the arrest of Maxwell, want to call it, and Prince Andrew. Right now, the Buckingham Palace has been boarded down and is being guarded by some special Indian armed military group, and the Queen is in hiding somewhere.
Interesting.
Because she came in 1983 to Canada. In Williams Lake, 18 Native girls off a reservation when their bus went missing. The police couldn't find anything. When she visited Williams Lake, that's what happened. And there's so many reservations across Canada that will say that their children went missing whenever the Queen was anywhere near their reserves. This woman is a cannibal. She probably has even been doing the adrenochrome stunt too. I can't prove that, but I do know that these children went missing. And the funny part is, as the world developed, the Native people don't feed their kids as holistically as they used to. They used to eat moose and elk and fish and good food. Now it's craft dinner and crap. So the royals and these people are not interested in the reserves anymore, because the kids and the young people they want to harvest, their food they're not good quality meat. Okay, they're going to Haiti and to Africa and to these other countries to grab these kids. And with the DUMBs being shut down, all of the countries are involved with it. That's when Trump says, we go one, we go all. The countries around the world, the nations around the world are involved in getting rid of the DUMBs and this whole situation. It's not just Trump talking about it. He is pulled back by the rest of the world's nations. It's incredible.
Curiously,
and you never hear about it.
That saying, we go one, we go all, that was actually on the bell of John F. Kennedy's boat.
Yes.
That's where it comes from originally. I'm in an interesting, unique position because my father is a very successful businessman and has run many companies in the UK, and he's actually been invited up to when they've had events at the palace up there, and he's met the Queen. And first time he met her, I had asked him. I don't think he knew what I was talking about, but I asked him if he could see her tail.
Oh, wow.
But it's remarkable. And he just told me, he's like, yeah, she's just a little old lady, just like old ladies. And I was like, if only you knew some of the stuff that I've been reading. And David Icke was connected inside, like sharing a room with. I'm sure you've heard the famous story between about him and Edward Heath. When they were in, I think in the room getting their makeup done, or whatever that room is called, maybe perhaps the green room at the BBC. And he said that Edward Heath's eyes went completely black, and that he just looked David Icke over from top to bottom, and that David, just in a state of just utter and total shock, had no clue what to do or say. And then his eyes went back to normal, and then it just carried on. But that was those kind of, that level of like super. Those are some of the experiences that I've had. I've seen, Rochelle and I both have had the eye of Ra in the shape of clouds looking at us in the sky, and that is just mind blowing. Of course, one of the things I always kick myself, because it's like, why didn't I whip out my cell phone and take a picture? It just, and that's regrettable. But thankfully, she experienced it with me. I've had so many crazy things, not crazy, metaphysical, supernatural. I mean, I've now, and I was, Carol said I'd be in contact with David's office a year ago when she did my reading, and she's also the seer for David Icke. She sent me my reading at 11/24, which is a very synchronistic sequence of numbers for me, and she sent the reading on David Icke's birthday to me, and told me in it that I was going to be in contact with David's office a year from now, and a year from now it happened. I've been going back and forth with Gareth Icke, and Dr. Randall and I and Gareth did a show recently. We're trying to get him for another show. So it's, this stuff is all real. It's just, and one of the things that what is required of us is to be smart about it. We talk about digging and doing the good fight, but we have to be smart about it. We can't lose these people to the complications and complexities of the rabbit hole. So we have to engineer an approach that is in line with what they know. And I know that sounds like a lot of work, but it's possible. I do it all the time. We have to work with what they know and what they believe, and try to weasel things in. Because if you tell anybody, if you're trying to enlighten somebody and you tell them something that goes against their belief system, they automatically will reject, and they will push you away, and they'll get, that they'll become uncomfortable feeling. They won't want to engage you. They won't want to talk anymore. So that's a real big part of this. And that's one of the things that, because people like to dive in and they like to talk about alien overlords. Well, you begin that conversation with 90% of the people on this planet, and their eyes are going to gloss over, and they're going to walk away thinking you're some sort of, like, what in God's name are you talking about? But it's true, and we have to manufacture and engineer a way to explain this information. The way I say it is I leave it kind of as a blank slate. If I get far enough to talking about families like the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, and when it comes to archons, because I know about archons very well, and I've been interviewed over my experience with archons in the past on podcasts and whatnot. If you tell them that there's always a bigger fish and everybody always has a master, that gives you a kind of a window and an opportunity to express more of that information. So
when you realize why Lady Di was murdered, and she was murdered, she was ready to go to the media because all of Britain trusted her. And she was ready to spill the beans on everything that was going on with the royals. And she felt safe enough to do it because she was engaged, and this man that was her husband-to-be was very wealthy. And she felt that she could finally come out and expose the British royals. And so they killed her.
Oh, yeah, and they brag about it, too, because on top of that tunnel is the symbol for the Illuminati, the torch, and it's the what is it called? It's the same, the torch and the flame, and they call it the eternal flame. And of course, that this is a bragging right to them. We have one on John F. Kennedy's gravestone, the eternal flame, but that's not there in honor of. We blew your brains open in public, in front of everybody, to show what happens if you start barking up the wrong tree. And that's exactly what the the eternal flame represents. The same one is on top of that tunnel that Dai was literally assassinated in. And I just wanted to say that in terms of Maxwell, the pronunciation of her name is Ghislaine, kind of like Glenn.
Okay.
Anyways, sorry to jump around from subject.
I got to just share this because it's so cool. When John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn were supposedly lost at sea, they didn't have any remains, so they had 2 Tiffany boxes, blue boxes. Well, when President Trump and Melania were on the White House steps, Melania handed Michael Robinson, and Obama a blue Tiffany box. The symbolism up there is just so beautiful.
Have you? There was an interesting video. I don't know if you saw that I came across it on Twitter with RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And somebody had wrote. I thought this was really interesting. Somebody had typed, and you could look this up. If John F. Kennedy or if JFK Jr. is still alive, touch your nose. And in the video, he touches his nose. You seen that, Bob?
Yep.
That's a really. I mean, would he have any reason to mess with people's heads like that? I mean, he's a pretty upstanding guy, and we know that he's into conspiracy because he's very much an active person when it comes to vaccine activism. So
but he was a boy after his father.
Mm-hmm.
In many, many senses, and he would have, and he was right in line for, to get into the politics business like his father. He could step right into it if he wanted to. He had enough, what would you say, family in front of him that he would definitely fit in very nicely. But his values and the things that he wanted to do that he talked about were so much like his father's. If anybody was going to disappear, I would if I was him.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to be, you are going to be gone if you stay in too much longer, because somebody had to get to him and say, look, this is what we're going to do for you. We'll let you get lost. Or,
incredible.
I mean, the same body of water that he flew over, I've flown over. Mm-hmm. And I was in, well, not too good. He was in a storm. I was in kind of sort of a storm. And that when I went over. On the instruments on your plane, okay, there's 2 separate parts on the plane that cause you not to go into the water. And rain, it doesn't bother. The plane he was in, it shouldn't even bother it. Yes, shake it up. Yeah, shake it around, a little cha-cha back and forth and things, but not put it in the ground. And the plane itself was checked before he left.
He was also running against Hillary for New York Senate seat at that time too. Bingo. Not to say that, I mean, so I don't know what, it's either if he was assassinated, I'm pretty sure it was sabotage, because I mean, the reports didn't make sense to me. They always say, well, he wasn't an instrument-rated pilot. I've flown a plane. I know for how to read an instrument panel. And I was never, I mean, my experience before I got in a real plane was playing Microsoft Flight Simulator. You know what I mean? And by the time I was 16 and I did an introductory flight, I knew how to fly. So I flew it. The instructor let go and let me land it, and I landed it. And so there's no way. I have a really hard time believing that he was flying upside down and completely unaware of it, like they had.
Yeah, he was very experienced.
Mm-hmm.
He had that a lot. So you don't take somebody that, I mean, let's face it, he was the kind of guy, he flew over. So I mean, I didn't do it maybe 3 times. Mm-hmm. Maybe he did it 100. It's like,
yeah, to Martha's
Vineyard. He could take his hands off the wing things and go that way. Mm-hmm. He talks to the plane. But for him to disappear like he did, I mean, it's something that, yes, they call it a conspiracy, but I still don't believe it. Just like his father. His father was supposed to be killed by this guy in a window.
Oh, yeah, right.
First manure. I'm sorry. It just don't add up. It just can't add up. And then again, you have all the science reports. Fire from here, fire from there, angle of the bullet, the wind at the time. I mean, come on, really, seriously. I mean, it's just one. they were preening the public to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it started way back then. I mean, that was kind of sort of the biggest smack in the head to the public. Oh, you're going to listen to us. So then they
Yeah.
started the Kennedy stuff, and it just kept going and going and going and going to where it is now that I know, Patrick, you're on the blogs, and I'm on the blogs net all the time. People will swear to the news they see on TV.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh
They
God,
will
yes.
swear to it. And boys, it's just like Georgia was saying that about the kids and things that I kind of got stuck somehow into the middle of a conversation. Why don't you ask him? And I'm like, duh. But I do know a lot about the pizza thing with the
Mhm.
order the kids net by the type of pizza and how many meatballs and all this
Oh,
other kind of stuff.
God. And you've got then those players, man. I've seen so much. I've seen so much symbolism. You know how they do it in plain sight, and
Mhm.
they, with Podesta and all those people. And it's awful. And that's the most irritating thing about it is because and then you try to tell somebody, and they're like, "Oh, what are you, some sort of tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist?"
Yes.
What is that? What is a conspiracy theorist? Let me just dissect that for a second. A person that tells you this is a person who sits on a couch, watches the news, and believes everything they're said, right? The person that attacks a conspiracy theorist. That's pretty much the extent that they go for where they get their information from. What does a
How
conspiracy theorist do?
how
They
about this?
read,
How about
research. Go
how
ahead.
about this one? How many times that do you hear people say, and I'm not kidding, they said? You'll hear
Yeah.
that. Or people are saying, or people told me. You ever try to define people?
Yeah.
Or who's they? It's like
They
it,
said, oh,
I,
the people
serious.
said, yeah.
I've been doing radio, and I did stages and everything else. And then I heard all kinds of things from all kinds of people, and I'm telling you, it still to this day drives me just as crazy as it did 30 years ago. It's
Mhm.
crazy. I mean, people say, they said, I heard. You heard what? Which year?
Well,
It's,
and
it's
what's so funny is the manipulations they do on television, which is so blatant. I love the experts say or our sources, which I caught onto this when I was young. I was like, what sources? Or what experts? What experts are they talking about? They don't even say who the experts are. Experts in the field say that the coronavirus is deadly and killing everybody in sight, or whatnot. But back to the conspiracy researcher thing. I mean, like I was saying, it's like I'm whereas they'll believe everything they're saying. I'm pouring through, like I said, this one book, The Invisible Rainbow, right now, and on top of a stack of articles and everything that I'm reading, and I'm learning about virology. I'm learning about in depth and in detail. I'm studying from doctors. I'm watching these videos. I'm learning everything I possibly can, and they call me the tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. Like, they're the conspiracy theorists by believing everything that they hear on the mainstream medicine. Mainstream medicine on the mainstream media. I'm a researcher, that's trying to find the truth by connecting the dots. And I'm not always going to be 100% correct, but I'm making an absolute honest effort to do it, versus sitting on the couch being programmed by what some paid television personality is telling me to think and how they're telling me to think and what to believe. There's two radically different things. And that's one of the things that always frustrates me is just how easy it is for them like there was recently that guy on NBC, and I made a fuss about this and I wrote an article about it. He, detailed his 10-day journey of having COVID and going and recovering, and he was sick and this and that. And, he had a national audience, NBC, MSNBC, and they're interviewing him. I can't remember his name. But he's got in his COVID thing, and it was all fake. So he does that. He uses his position on television to promote phoniness, fakeness, to program everybody at these beliefs. Whereas we, as researchers, are sitting there having to undo all that programming that they're doing to other people by presenting evidence, actually researching, looking into it, breaking things down, explaining things, making the actual honest effort versus being told to basically straight up lie like those guys are. That's all they are. They're up on TV lying. They're lying. They're given a script. They're all actors, for one. They might have some background in this or that, but they're all actors. They're given a script that they just read and repeat, and they put on the voice, and they sound very authoritative, and they sound like your father. And
they're actors.
And they have this, absolutely. The next story is, and this is against our democracy. They have that phony tone, and it's just so. I don't know. I don't want to say frustrated, because I don't want to.
Probably the greatest example of that was a British newscaster saying that the Building 7 came down the same time.
Oh yeah.
It was hours and hours later that Building 7 came down. The
evidence is right there, but you know how many people were completely ignored? And I've got that book that David just wrote. It's not in my office right now. The Trigger, about 9/11, and you read through that, and it's mind blowing. It's just absolutely mind blowing the way that David breaks things down. David Icke is he's like a hero to me. I mean, and what he has had to deal with, and what he's had to face down, and how he's just stuck to it, and just went against it, and fought against it, and fought year after year while they're making fun of him. It could have been so easy for him to just go, you know what, I'm gonna go get a job somewhere in an island, but he didn't. And man, so he deserves all the praise that he's getting recently, and it's so fun to see. I mean, he was invited back on Wogan, and he was actually apologized to. You could actually look up that video on YouTube, because everything he's saying, everything he was talking about 30 years ago is happening now. So it's incredible. And he's not the only researcher, but he's one of the most visible, one of the most famous. One of my good friends, Tom Minderly from Montauk.net, and this guy's just an absolute genius, and he's also a gem of a person. Tom is awesome. I love Tom, and his material, he's written and researched for, he's going on like 15 years now or so, or even more, and and he's got his corner of the internet. He's got a pretty good following, but he was never out in the mainstream like that. But man, what an incredible mind, what an incredible person, and just like these people that have all come into my life, at least as I've gone through this journey, have been so inspiring to me. And, the supernatural experiences plus this inspiration is what made me walk away from life as normal. You can never go back. You really can't. After you start learning all this stuff, you can't just go go start working somewhere and just kind of live your life, a normal life following that. It just doesn't happen.
It's not normal either.
Yeah, it's not a normal. What we thought was the normal life is anything but,
Uh-huh.
Here in Canada, we are so constricted. It's so corrupt here. Like, David Icke isn't even allowed to visit.
Yeah, I know they banned him. That's the same with Australia. Mm-hmm.
When we'll ever get freedom, our only hope is President Trump. Our only hope.
Well, there you go. Doctor, you got to take us out of here.
Hey, all of you are wonderful researchers, and thank you for telling the truth, because that's what David Icke has done all this time, and that's what I learned about you, Bob, and you, Georgia, and you, Patrick. You guys are researchers, and you tell the truth, and eventually the truth will hit people. Okay, and so I guess my contention is, if Trump does not do it, I will, and Patrick will. Because we're still running for president. Because it's like this two-party system does not work. So why not get everyone onto the internet and say, I'm going to vote for these guys, or pick someone else that will do everything to promote people and to get everyone involved, and not just carry them along, but to encourage them to be the best that they can be, to make their dreams come true by working hard for it, but by uniting together and not going together as a split community or a split population. Anyway, I want to thank all of you for attending and for all the massive amount of information here. And let's do this again, because it's all of your research you're telling truth. There's nothing conspiracy about any of this. all you are doing is telling the truth. And we need to take all that truth and do something about it right now, not later, right now. You want to be free, you want to be a slave, which is it going to be? If it's going to be freedom, we got to fight for it, and it starts now.
Well, there you go. How? Who? Who can get in touch with Patrick and how?
patrickherbert.org or Pat, you can email me at patrickherbert@gmail.com. But please go to my blog. I write a lot, and I like people to read it.
Yeah. And I've been on his site, and it's really, really good. I mean, I had not been on it before, but I was on it the other day when he said, go on the site. I did. I was like, whoa.
Thank you.
And it's really, really, really cool. Cool stuff. Georgia, how do we get in touch with you?
Lovenow@telus.net. LOVENOW@telus.net.
There you go.
Is the best way to get hold of me.
There you go. And she also, you can send me to pyramid1radio@aol.com. Any questions that you have or comments that you have about the show. The show will be up on Wednesday. And right now, let me see. Actually, tomorrow or the next day, that'll be dead center in the middle of the landing page. Now, there's a new name now for the landing page that you cannot miss getting on the landing page, no matter where you are, what you are. And that's not me.
Sorry.
Oops. Anyway, it's called, now are you ready? It's called Pyramid One Network or Pyramid One Radio. Just look for the word Wix, W-I-X, behind it. Either one will boop right onto the landing page. You get into the chat room. The videos are going on there. The copies of the videos are there in that for you to see. Also, there's a copy of the channel for the video channel on YouTube. All of the information, the telephone numbers, all the information and everybody's information is on there. So just go Pyramid One Network it says Wix on it, and you'll go right into the main landing page.
Wonderful.
Yeah. We're getting better in the long run. You know what I mean? And by the way, anybody that wants to call in, the number 609-663-0153. If you haven't called already, you're probably sitting there because I'm looking at the graph of what's going on around the country. And let me tell you, there's a lot of calls listening to us right now, and I just hope that they download everything that's in this video.
If they would like to go to Amazon and just get the ebook Escape from Manhattan, there's so much information in that. It's a good primer to wake up anybody, and it's like $5. I don't care if I see any money from it or not, but just one more person I can wake up, that's wonderful.
Well, there you go. Well, I'll put that in the thing for the video tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okie doke. Oh, we know how to get out, don't we?
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's a gang. You know what I mean? Next time, Dan Pelly will be back with us. Right now, and he's working his magic around the world. Everyone, remember one word. Love. All you have to do is love everybody. Now, is that hard to do? Of course it is. Or maybe it's not. It's up to you. Say, I am. And you will definitely, absolutely win over everyone around you and the world. God bless y'all. Bob Charles.